Lieutenant Park stood at attention as the airlock door opened on the Proxima Centauri outpost. This was humanity's furthest reach into space, and today they would meet their first alien species. His heart beat fast under his crisp blue uniform. 3 tall, blue-skinned aliens stepped through the door. They moved with grace that seemed impossible for their height. Their eyes were large and silver, and they wore simple white coverings that looked more like functional equipment than clothing. "Welcome to Human Outpost Alpha," Park said, keeping his voice steady. "I am Lieutenant Park, military liaison for this station." The tallest alien stepped forward. "I am Nera, first speaker of the Velari expedition." Her voice had a musical quality, even through the translation device. "We bring greetings from our homeworld." The meeting started well. The human diplomatic team and the Velari exchanged basic information about their worlds and cultures. Park stood quietly, watching the aliens carefully, as was his duty. He noticed that 2 Velari kept looking at him, or more specifically, at his uniform. They whispered to each other, their silver eyes wide with what seemed like excitement. During a break in the talks, one of these Velari approached him. She was shorter than the others, with markings on her face that reminded Park of freckles. "I am Lena, cultural scientist," she said. "Your covering has many colors and shapes. What is its purpose?" "This is a standard military uniform," Park explained. "The insignia show my rank and achievements." Lena's eyes widened even more. "These symbols have meaning. May I examine them closer?" Park nodded, thinking she just wanted a better look. Of course. What happened next was something Park would never forget. Lena called over several other Velari scientists, and they surrounded him, talking rapidly in their own language. Their translator devices struggled to keep up, but Park caught phrases like cultural artifact and ceremonial display. Before he could understand what was happening, Lena reached out and touched his sleeve. "This material, what is its significance?" "It's just standard issue polyfiber," Park said, becoming uncomfortable with how close they were standing. Another Velari, named Han, touched the buttons on his jacket. "And these metal circles, they secure the covering but also serve as symbols." "They're just buttons," Park said, stepping back slightly. But the Velari moved with him. The human diplomats were busy with Nera, and didn't notice what was happening until Park called out, "Sir, I could use some assistance here." But it was too late. The Velari scientists, believing they were conducting important cultural research, had already begun carefully removing Park's uniform jacket. "Please stop," Park said, his face growing hot. "This is not appropriate." The Velari looked confused but continued. "We wish to study the artifact," Lena explained. "Is this not permitted?" "Not while I'm wearing it." Park tried to step away, but the curious aliens followed. The chief human diplomat finally noticed the commotion. "What's happening over there?" By then, the Velari had removed Park's jacket and were examining his uniform shirt with great interest. "The layers have different purposes," Han asked, reaching for a button. Park grabbed the diplomat's arm as he approached. "Sir, there's been a misunderstanding. They think my uniform is some kind of separate cultural item, not personal clothing." The diplomat's eyes widened in understanding. "Oh dear." But the explanation came too late. The Velari, working with the careful precision of scientists, had already removed Park's shirt and were laying it flat on a nearby table for examination. Park stood in his undershirt, his face burning with embarrassment as the Velari exclaimed over the artifacts they had collected. Nera noticed the commotion and approached. "Is there a problem?" The human diplomat cleared his throat. "There seems to be a cultural misunderstanding. In our culture, clothing is personal. Removing someone's clothing without permission is considered very inappropriate." Nera's silver eyes widened in shock. "These coverings are personal boundaries, not objects for study." She turned to her scientists. "Stop immediately." The Velari scientists froze, looking confused and then horrified as understanding dawned. "We have violated a taboo," Lana said, her voice quiet. We did not know. Park stood awkwardly as the room fell silent. Then, surprisingly, he found himself laughing. The situation was so absurd that he couldn't help it. It's okay, he said. You didn't know. But maybe we can start our cultural exchange with a lesson about personal space. Nara bowed deeply. Lieutenant Park, we offer profound apologies. We have much to learn about humans. Park nodded as a fellow officer brought him a spare uniform. And we have much to learn about the Velari. This is just the beginning. The weeks following the uniform incident were strange for Lieutenant Park. He had become, without wanting to, the main human expert on clothing customs for the Velari. Every day, Velari scientists asked him questions that no one had ever asked him before. Why do humans need so many different coverings? Asked Lena one morning as they sat in the station's meeting room. Park sipped his coffee, now comfortable enough with the blue-skinned aliens to speak freely. We use clothing for many reasons. Protection, yes, but also to show who we are, our jobs, our cultures, even our moods. Lena took notes on her tablet. This is very complex. For Velari, coverings are only for function. Cold weather, dangerous environments, specific jobs that need protection. Park looked at Lena's simple white covering. It reminded him of a lightweight jumpsuit with many pockets, so you don't care how it looks. Look. Lena seemed confused. It serves its purpose. What else matters? Park tried another approach. On Earth, some people spend hours choosing what to wear each day. The Velari scientists all looked at each other in surprise. Han, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. Hours? For something that is not a tool. We see clothing as more than tools, Park explained. They're part of who we are. Nara joined them, wearing the same simple white covering as the others. Park had noticed that all the Velari wore identical clothing, with only small differences based on their work needs. Lieutenant Park, Nara said with a small bow, thank you for continuing to help us understand. The concept of modesty is particularly difficult for us. Park felt his face warm slightly. The memory of the first contact incident was still fresh. Modesty is the idea that certain body parts should be covered in public. But which parts need covering changes between human cultures? Ta, another scientist, asked. Yes, Park confirmed. What's acceptable in one human culture might be inappropriate in another. Then how do humans know what is correct? Lena asked, looking genuinely confused. We learn our cultural rules as we grow up, Park said, though it can be confusing when we travel to different places. Han made a sound that Park had learned was Velari laughter. Humans must spend much time thinking about coverings. More than you might believe, Park said with a smile. There are entire industries built around fashion. The Velari discussed this among themselves in their own language. Their translator devices caught only bits of their conversation. Unnecessary complexity and fascinating adaptation. Nara turned back to Park. May I ask something personal, Lieutenant? Park nodded, now used to the Velari's direct questions. When we removed your uniform that first day, your face changed color. Was this a sign of damaged health? Park couldn't help laughing. No, I was blushing. Humans sometimes turn red when they're embarrassed. Embarrassed? Tai asked. This is a feeling. Yes, Park said. It's discomfort when you feel exposed or when you've made a mistake in front of others. The Velari looked at each other again. Nara spoke softly. We do not have this feeling. If something is incorrect, we fix it. If something is unknown, we learn it. That sounds much simpler, Park admitted. Later that day, Park walked with Nara through the station gardens. These small green spaces helped humans feel less homesick, but the Velari found them fascinating. Your people are very different from mine, Nara said, touching a leaf gently. But I think we can learn from each other. What could humans learn from Velari? Park asked, curious about her perspective. Directness, purpose, We do not hide our thoughts behind complicated words or spend energy on things that do not matter. Park thought about human politics, fashion trends, and social media. You might be right about that. And what could Valari learn from humans? Nora asked. Park looked at the carefully tended garden, created purely for beauty and comfort. Maybe that some things have value beyond their function. Beauty, tradition, personal expression. These matter too. Nara was quiet for a moment. I have been considering this. Yesterday I chose a covering with a pattern that pleased me, though it served no better function. She sounded almost embarrassed to admit it. Park smiled. That's a start. As they continued walking, Park realized that despite their differences, he was beginning to genuinely like the Valari. Their honesty was refreshing after years of military politics. Lieutenant Park, Nara said suddenly, what is the purpose of the small fabric square in your pocket? The one you never use. Park touched his handkerchief. Sometimes its purpose is just to be ready if needed. And sometimes, he smiled, its purpose is simply tradition. Nara nodded slowly. I think I am beginning to understand humans better. The alert sirens woke Park from a deep sleep. He jumped out of bed and grabbed his uniform, dressing quickly as the station's AI announced, unidentified vessels approaching. All personnel to emergency stations. Park ran to the command center, where Captain Kim was already studying the large main screen. Several unknown ships were entering the system, moving fast toward the station. What do we know? Park asked as he took his position. Not much, Captain Kim replied. They're not responding to hails, and they don't match any known human or Valari designs. The door opened, and Nara entered with two other Valari. Their normally calm faces showed concern. Those are Kral ships, Nara said, her voice tight. They are dangerous. They take what they want and destroy what they cannot take. Captain Kim looked at her sharply. You know these aliens? Yes. They attacked our colony on Vega 6 2 cycles ago. Many Valari died. Nara's silver eyes darkened with memory. They are conquerors. The communication officer called out, Captain, we're receiving a transmission. The main screen changed to show a reptilian face with dark scales and yellow eyes. The alien wore some kind of metal armor with glowing symbols. Attention human Valari station, the alien said in a rough voice. This is Commander Dex of the Kral Empire. Your presence in this system is not authorized. You will surrender your station and all technology within 6 hours, or we will take it by force. The screen went dark before anyone could respond. 6 hours, Captain Kim said quietly. That's not much time. Park looked at the tactical display. 5 Kral ships against their one station with limited defenses. The math wasn't good. We should send a distress signal to Earth, suggested the communications officer. The nearest Earth fleet is 2 weeks away, Park said. We need another solution. Nara stepped forward. The Valari homeworld could send ships in 3 days. Still too long, Captain Kim said, shaking his head. Park studied the Kral ships on the display. We need to combine our strengths, human tactics and Valari abilities. What do you mean? Asked Captain Kim. The Kral expect us to fight separately, Park explained. They've seen humans before, and they've seen Valari before, but they've never seen us fighting together. Nara nodded slowly. This is true. Our ways are very different. Exactly, said Park. And that's our advantage. For the next few hours, Park worked with Nara to create a defense plan. They gathered all station personnel, human and Valari alike, in the main hall. The Kral are strong and have better weapons, Park told the mixed crowd. But they don't expect us to work together. They don't understand our differences or how they can make us stronger. Park outlined the plan. The Valari had natural abilities humans lacked. They could change their skin color slightly to blend with surroundings, and they were stronger in the station's lower gravity. Humans had tactical experience and knowledge of the station's systems that the Valari didn't. We will use the station itself as a weapon, Park explained. We'll let them board, then trap them in separate sections. A human engineer raised her hand. But if they board, we've already lost. Not if we control where they board, Park said. We can set up fake weaknesses, areas that look easy to enter. Nara added, my people can hide in these areas. We will let the Crawl think they have won, then surprise them. Some of the humans looked doubtful. Working closely with the Velari was still new to them. The uniform incident was fresh in everyone's memory. Park saw the uncertainty. I know our cultures are different. 2 months ago, we barely understood each other. But today, those differences might save all our lives. A Velari named Ta stepped forward. The human is right. The Crawl expect us to be separated by our differences. They do not expect unity. As the meeting ended, Nara approached Park. Your plan is risky. Do you have a better one? Park asked. Nara was quiet for a moment. No, but I am concerned about trust. Can your people truly fight alongside mine? Park thought about the past weeks, about the cultural exchanges that had sometimes been awkward but always honest. I trust you, he said simply. And I think others will too, when it matters. Nara touched his arm, a gesture she had learned from humans. Then we will prepare. As the 6-hour deadline approached, Park stood with Nara in the command center. The station had been transformed into a trap for the Crawl. Hidden defenses were ready. Mixed teams of humans and Velari waited in position. The communication screen lit up again with Commander Dex's reptilian face. Your time is up. What is your answer? Captain Kim stepped forward. We need more time to discuss. Time is over, Dex interrupted. We take what we want. The screen went dark as the Crawl ships moved into attack formation. Park looked at Nara. It begins. She nodded. Together, the Crawl ships fired their first shots at the station's main docking bay. The blast shook the entire structure, and warning lights flashed throughout the corridors. They're hitting exactly where we expected, Park said, watching the tactical display. They think it's our weakest point. Captain Kim nodded. Defensive shields are holding at 40%. That should look weak enough to tempt them. The plan was working so far. They had deliberately weakened the shields around one docking area, while strengthening the rest of the station. They wanted the Crawl to think they had found an easy way in. Crawl boarding craft approaching, reported the sensor officer. 3 vessels, heading for docking bay 2. Park turned to Nara. Time for phase 2. Are your people ready? Yes, Nara said. Team 1 is in position. Team 1 consisted of 6 Velari, who had hidden themselves in the walls and ceiling of the docking bay. Their skin had changed color to match their surroundings, making them nearly invisible. The station shook again as the Krell boarding craft attached themselves to the hull. Cutting tools began to burn through the outer doors. They're coming through faster than we expected, Park said, feeling a flash of worry. My people will be ready, Nara assured him. On the security feeds, they watched as the docking bay doors were forced open. Krell soldiers poured in, wearing heavy armor and carrying energy weapons. They moved with military precision, securing the bay quickly. They are well trained, Captain Kim observed. The lead Krell officer pointed down the main corridor, and the soldiers began to advance into the station. Just as they passed beneath the high ceiling of the bay, 6 Velari dropped silently from above. The Krall never saw them coming. The Velari landed on the rear soldiers first, using their superior strength to disable them quickly and quietly. By the time the front soldiers realized something was wrong, half their team was already down. It's working, Park said, watching the security feed with amazement. The Velari moved with incredible speed, disarming Krell soldiers before they could fire their weapons. The battle in the docking bay was over in less than 2 minutes. Team 1 reports success, Nara said, listening to her communication device. All Krall in the first wave are contained. But there was no time to celebrate. The Krell commander, seeing that his first team had stopped reporting, sent in a second, larger force. "They're coming through all 3 boarding points now," reported the sensor officer. "At least 30 soldiers." Park turned to Nara. "Time for Phase 3. Let's move." Park and Nara had assigned themselves to Team 3, which would deal with any Krail who made it past the initial defenses. They hurried from the command center to a junction where 2 main corridors met. "Remember," Park told the mixed human-Valeri team waiting there, "we need to drive them toward Section 5. The engineers have prepared the trap there." They didn't have to wait long. Soon, the sound of heavy boots and energy weapons echoed down the corridor. A group of Kral soldiers appeared, moving cautiously now, aware that something had gone wrong with their first assault. "Ready," Park whispered, raising his hand. The lead Kral stepped into the junction area. "Now," Park shouted. The humans opened fire from hidden positions while the Valeri launched themselves from above. The surprise was complete. The Krail tried to form a defensive position, but they couldn't tell where all the attacks were coming from. Park fired his weapon, hitting a Kral soldier in the shoulder. Next to him, Nara moved with incredible speed, disarming 2 Kral before they could aim their weapons. "Fall back," Park called, following the plan. "Everyone to Section 4. Their team retreated down the corridor, making it look like they were being driven back. The Krail, seeing what appeared to be a retreat, followed aggressively. "They're taking the bait," Nara said as they passed through a heavy door into Section 4. The Kral forces followed them through, and that's when the trap was sprung. The station's engineer team had repointed the gravity controls for Section 5. As soon as the Kral entered, the gravity increased to 3 times normal. The heavily armored Kral soldiers suddenly found themselves pinned to the floor, their equipment now too heavy to lift. Park, Nara, and their team watched from behind protective shields as the Kral struggled. "Your plan worked," Nara said, her silver eyes wide with respect. "Our plan," Park corrected her. "I couldn't have done it without your people." Throughout the station, similar scenes played out as human ingenuity and Valeri natural abilities combined to counter the Kral invasion. The human engineers used the station's systems in ways the Kral never expected, while the Valeri used their physical capabilities to surprise and overwhelm the invaders. After 4 hours of fighting, the last Kral resistance ended. The boarding parties were contained, and the Kral ships outside, seeing that their ground forces had failed, retreated to a safe distance. In the command center, humans and Valeri gathered to assess their victory. Despite some injuries, they had suffered no fatalities. "We did it," Park said, looking around at the mixed group. "Together." Captain Kim nodded. "The Kral will think twice before attacking us again." Nara approached Park. His uniform was torn at the sleeve where a Kral weapon had barely missed him. "Your covering is damaged," she noted, touching the torn fabric gently. Park smiled. "Some things are more important than proper uniforms." "Yes," Nara agreed. "Today I learned that different does not mean weak. Together, our differences made us strong." 6 months had passed since the Kral attack on the station. The alliance between humans and Valeri had grown stronger with each day. What had begun as an awkward cultural misunderstanding had become one of the strongest partnerships in known space. Park stood in the newly built Alliance Hall, straightening his dress uniform. Today was important. The ships from Earth had finally arrived, bringing diplomats to formalize the alliance with the Valeri. "You look nervous," said Nara, entering the room. Park turned and smiled. She was wearing something new. A blue covering that resembled a human uniform, but was adapted for Valeri physiology. "Is that what I think it is?" Park asked. Nara looked down at her clothing. "Yes. Our scientists created it based on your uniforms. We wanted to honor human traditions today." Park was touched by the gesture. "It looks good on you." "It feels strange," Nara admitted. "So many layers, so many symbols. But I think I understand now why humans value these things." The door opened and Admiral Lee entered. She was Earth's highest-ranking officer in this sector and had traveled 3 weeks to reach the station. "Lieutenant Park," she said with a nod. I've read the reports, but they hardly do justice to what you've accomplished here. Park stood straight. Thank you, Admiral. But it wasn't just me. Without the Velari, we wouldn't have survived the Krull attack. Admiral Lee looked at Nera with interest. So I understand. Your people fought bravely alongside ours. Nera bowed slightly, a human gesture she had learned. We protected each other. That is what allies do. More people began to enter the hall, human diplomats in formal attire and Velari representatives, some now wearing their own versions of uniforms. Park noticed that while all the Velari used to dress identically, they now showed individual choices in their clothing. Your influence has been significant, Nera said quietly, noticing Park's observation. Many Velari now understand that coverings can have meaning beyond function. And many humans have learned from the Velari too, Park replied. Being more direct, focusing on what matters. The ceremony began with speeches from both sides. Admiral Lee spoke of the unexpected friendship that had grown from first contact. The Velari High Speaker talked about the strength found in differences. Then came the most important part, the exchange of symbolic gifts. Admiral Lee presented the Velari with a specially designed flag that incorporated elements from both cultures. This will fly at all joint human Velari facilities, she explained. A symbol of our alliance. The Velari High Speaker then stepped forward with their gift. It was a set of ceremonial coverings, uniforms that combined human design with Velari functionality. These represent our new understanding, the High Speaker said. Like our peoples, they are stronger together than apart. Park watched with pride. 6 months ago, the idea of Velari creating ceremonial clothing would have been unthinkable. Now they not only understood the concept, but had embraced it. After the ceremony, Park found himself standing with Nera at the large viewing window that looked out toward the stars. In the distance, they could see the Krull ships that still patrolled the edge of the system. They're still watching us, Park noted. Yes, Nara agreed. But they won't attack again soon. They know now what we can do together. Park thought about how far they had come since that first embarrassing meeting. Did you ever imagine we would end up here? When you first arrived on the station, Nera made the sound that Park now recognized as laughter. When we first met, I thought humans were very strange creatures who placed too much importance on fabric and symbols. And what do you think now? Park asked. I think, Nera said slowly, that sometimes the things that seem least important can matter the most. Your coverings, your uniforms, they are not just fabric. They represent who you are, what you believe. She touched the sleeve of her new uniform. When I wear this, I feel part of something larger than myself. I understand now why humans value such things. Park nodded. And I've learned from your people too. To be more direct, to waste less time on things that don't matter. A group of young human officers walked past, talking with Velari scientists. They moved comfortably together, without the awkwardness that had marked early interactions. Look at them, Nera said. They don't see different species. They see allies. Admiral Lee approached them. Lieutenant Park, the Joint Fleet Command has a proposal for you. Park stood at attention. Ma'am, we're creating a new position, Cultural Liaison Officer for the Human Velari Alliance. After your experience here, you're the natural choice. Park was speechless for a moment. I would be honored, Admiral. Later, as the celebration continued around them, Park and Nera stood together watching human and Velari dancing to music from both worlds. It all started with your uniform getting removed, Nera said with amusement in her voice. Park laughed. Sometimes the most embarrassing moments lead to the greatest understanding. Nera touched the symbol on her new uniform, a design that showed human and Velari hands clasped together. What we wear shows who we are, she said. And now we are allies. Park nodded, looking out at the stars where both their peoples would soon travel together. Allies, he agreed, and friends.